This next bit you can't do with fingers. It's just ruthless.
I am sitting here with the legendary fretless monster, Tony Franklin. You know Tony from his expressive bass playing with Kate Bush, The Firm, Blue Murder, Whitesnake, and so many more. He has a singular voice on the fretless bass, and we are here to talk to him about some of his best bass lines, gear, and sage advice for playing fretless bass and finding your voice. Tony, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful. It's great. Love what you guys are doing. So it's an honor to be here and spread the fretless love.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to jump right in and watch you playing with Kate Bush. Let's check this out. Oh, there you are. Come on. That bass, that hair.
And the suit. Very, very 1987.
It's incredible. And singing BGVs like a monster.
You know, it's what the gig needed. So whatever it needs, you know. And thankfully the gig and the song and the moment really suited the fretless and my style. It's just kind of all fit together very naturally and easily.
And I feel like you're playing a different thing here than the record
Very much
plays,
so.
right? Yeah, you're pulsing in a different way. You're taking some liberties with fills. There, right? That moment.
The thing is, I mean, we do it in a different key. The original was in C. I don't know who made the call, probably David, to say, hey, we're going to do it in D. It gives a little bit more energy, a little bit more drive. And it was perfect because you've got those open strings. So, you know, I'm listening to the original and my instincts as a rock player are to want to drive it a lot more. And I felt like the original was kind of a little... It was static. It was very, I don't want to say stagnant, but it had a different kind of vibe. And I wanted to bring some energy to that. And I think that's what they were going for, taking up the key and having it rock out. And so it was beautiful because it enabled a lot of those. There's a lot of that. So you got those open strings there. You got the D and then the G. And so it was very, very... dare I say, natural and easy to do that, because to me the most important thing is the pulse.
Yes.
That has to be there. And so that was the foundation, and those kind of pull-off fills. Keep that same pulse and rhythm going. I'm like, yeah, that works. So here's the thing. It's always kind of been my deal. Push it as far as you can, and if nobody says anything, then keep doing it.
Sure, right.
It still has to be about the song first. And here's my approach with everything that I do. People say, wow, it's so much going on, all those fills and all that. But I am always listening to the voice and to the melody, whatever's going on. To me, the most important thing about the song is the melody and the voice. And so you'll notice I'm never doing those fills when it comes to any vocals or stuff that's going on. I stay out of the way. But there's lots of gaps too, so it gives me quite a license to be able to play. So we probably rehearsed it 3 times. Everybody went in and we were completely ready. I mean, you got... top guys there. The drummer, Stuart Elliott, had worked with Kate for many years. They were good friends. David Gilmour, of course. And then Kevin McAuley, who is a bit of trivia. He co-wrote the lyrics to Nana's 99 Red Balloons.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, so he had a pedigree. So everybody knew what they were doing. So I went in, I was prepared, I knew the song. We probably played it differently every time. My approach was different. It's like, okay, that's the way I played it this time. That's the way I played it the next time. But nobody said anything, so I just kept going. And then when it came to the performance, that's how it came out. I mean, it's like, and I listen to it now, I'm really going for it. But
you are going.
Yeah, I really am.
Yes.
A lot of that, and it's like, it works. It seems to give it a different drive to the original. And I think, I don't know, it just worked.
Well, you know, the original too just stays, the bottom stays on the root, and it never goes that, you know, flat 6, flat 7 root thing. And the keyboards do, but the bass, whatever's playing the bass thing doesn't. And
I've got to listen to that, because are you sure?
I think so. I think it pedals. I think the bottom of that tune pedals, but the keys and guitar are doing that progression. And then when you did it, I could be wrong, but I remember hearing you doing it thinking, yes, of course, that's the thing that should happen is, you know, dum, 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 like that seems to be the thing that it should do. But yeah, I think the bottom of that thing just stays on a static, like one chord, and lets the top stuff move around. But when you're galloping, when you're doing that rhythm with the drums, are you playing 3 fingers? Are you playing 2? Could you like break that down, slow it down, and sort of show us what you're doing rhythmically there?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing the Steve Harris, the gallop thing with the 3 fingers. It's I never developed that, so I don't have the strength in that finger. I suppose I could. We did a rock and roll fancy camp with Nico McBrain, and we had to do Run to the Hills. So I was able to sustain it for one song at least. But no, this is slowly is. It's that. So
yes.
What am I doing? It's that's it, really.
Yeah.
What am I doing? It's mostly with the middle finger. I usually lead with the middle finger. You know, it's funny. I never really think about these things. I just do what instinctively feels right at the time. There's no real thought of is there a different way to do it? It's just the way that it flows for me. I've always kind of been that way. And then
it develops.
Yeah, and then the fills are just wherever they're going to be. Does that make sense? Well,
there's a great fill in this where I love this fill. Let's check it out. And then I feel like this is incorporating some of those pull-offs that you're talking about, and I would love to just hear you talk about this. And if this just happened spur of the moment, or if this was a plan, let's check this one out. Like that moment right there. It's so cool. Do you remember?
I have no idea.
That was. But even what you were just playing a moment ago was so cool with the pull-offs. And do you remember that? Could you break down kind of your approach to that? If something's in D, you know, using the open D, using the open G, like you said.
Yeah, what I think I was doing on that fill is something like that.
Outrageous.
You know, really?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think so. I don't hear that often, right? Will you slow it down? What's happening right there?
I'm laughing. It's great. I mean, I've never thought about it, really. Oh. Literally, I mean, it's so simple, really. It's just the straight pull-offs from the... I think that's what it is. And then
cool.
It gives you see, you have this rhythm going with it, and it's you just have some notes that you know are going to work. And then I throw a little bit of a different rhythm in there. Whatever.
Yes.
So that's really all that's going on, but keeping to those notes, the ones you know that are going to work. The C, G, the F, the D.
And I mean, all without lines as well. And I know you've talked about this. I know you've talked about playing fretless bass without lines. And I'd love to hear it. And I know our audience would too, just in terms of why you don't play a fretless bass with lines.
Yes, well, I put out a video, didn't I? And it was with the deliberate reason to get the conversation started. It was a little bit of a cheeky title, why I think unlined fretless is better than lined. And of course you can play fretless with unlined or aligned. It doesn't make any difference. If that's your tool to do that, that's fine. I personally find the lines very distracting and annoying. Why? Because the nature of the musical scale is not perfectly subdivided, right? Rather than try to describe it, well, it's this. No, I don't get too technical. I just simply demonstrate it using the tuner, okay?
Yes.
So I do an open D, and then the 10th above it, or the 3rd, the F sharp, put that perfectly in tune on the tuner. I got the 2 nicely in tune. Play the 2 together. That sounds off to me.
Yes, like the 3rd is sharp.
Yes.
Right.
So I would just literally flatten it a little bit.
Ugh.
And it's pleasing, isn't it? It's soothing.
Yes.
It's right. But if we check that F sharp, can't see on the tuner, but it's not in tune. Oh, no.
Right, it's flat.
Yeah,
right.
It is flattened. And that sounds right. And that is the whole thing of it. To me, if we're going to be locked in visually to the lines, then we're not going to use our ears. And our ears should have the final say. They are the ones that tell us if something sounds right? Not our eyes.
But have you ever been on that, the big stage and it's booming and it's crazy? And have you ever thought to yourself, oh man, kind of wish I had those lines at the moment? Never.
No, never. I get irritated by them. And so, no, the thing is, but here's the dilemma of it. We are playing with instruments that are perfectly subdivided. Electric keyboard.
Yeah.
That is perfectly subdivided. And then even a guitar, it has the frets. So there's what do you do in that situation? Well, I use my ears again. But you can adjust. That's the nice thing about the fretless bass. But for me, the lines, I'm like, I start thinking about it. Oh, yeah, that's right. This one, I need to be off the line a little bit. And so, of course, I have the guide dots. I'm not completely... I'm not completely blind.
You're not a masochist? Yeah.
No,
right.
I mean, it's like I'm not very good at the upright bass, which is a whole different world. They don't have the guide dots. If I play it, I put the cheat lines on the side,
There we go. Yeah.
I have a beautiful Takamine TB10 bass, and that does not come with the dots. I painted them on with some nail lacquer. Yes. It works very well. And those lines, for me, they literally get me so irritated. And the point is, yes, if you know that you can go into it and you're going to be slightly behind the line, and that's the thing that gives you that comfort, then great. But to me, it's almost like taking the training wheels off a bike, when you do without them. You have so much more freedom. And it's just, I love it. No, I don't miss lines. I never had lines.
Really?
Yes.
Journey to the fretless bass for you. I mean, did you start playing fretted? I'm assuming you did when you first started playing. Did you then, when you got a fretless, was it unlined?
Yes, it was.
What bass was that?
That was what I call the firm fretless. It's my 1977 Fretless Precision bass. And that's the one. Well, here's the story behind it. Okay, I heard Jaco Pastorius' solo album in 1979, which is later, after it had been released. And that's it. It's like, I have to have a fretless. I just loved the presence of it, the expression, and just, of course, his execution and presence on the fretless was otherworldly, but I wanted that. And I am not a fan of a jazz bass in the slightest. I don't own one to this day. I only own the P basses with the added pickup.
Why?
All of them. Why? Because for me personally, I love the shape of the P bass.
Yeah.
I love the neck. I do not like the extra skinny neck of the jazz bass. I like the beautiful simplicity of the master volume and the master tone, which I keep with this. I do not like the individual volume and tone controls.
Sure,
you know, the two volume controls, because it's like, especially in a live situation, it's not very practical. There's all those in between things that you're not going to get it the same. I have the 3-position selector switch, so it's simple. Straight P bass. Straight jazz bass in the jazz bass position. I can do a Jaco sound. Doesn't sound like him, does it? Sounds like me. And then
it's lovely.
And then the perfect blend of the two. So it's so versatile. And then the tone control and where you play it, if you're going to play it or up here. I haven't changed anything. Don't need all those extra knobs and that in-between stuff when you have such versatility with what you have literally at hand. So, and I love the P-bass pickup. You don't get that chunk and low end out of a jazz bass. John Paul Jones might say differently, but there's a low end and a thickness that comes from a P-bass that is just so powerful and just so rock. Yet to me, this is the ultimate versatility right here.
Yeah. And so your first fretless was a P bass. Was that fretless P bass?
Yes. And here's the irony and the fun part of it is that the fretless P bass, Unlined, was a stock model in the Fender lineup through the 70s, starting like 71 or something. And then when Jaco came along, everybody wanted the lined jazz bass.
Of course.
So, we can have lines. That's great. We like that. And so this was being discontinued. Nobody wanted it anymore. So I probably got the last one in the country. This is 1979. And it was a 77, so it shows how long it had been there a couple of years. Nobody wanted it. And it had a rosewood fingerboard. I knew I wanted that because I like the round strings. I heard that the maple neck is a little softer and the rosewood is a little bit more durable. And so that's what I went with. There was this one left in the Bass Center in London. Went down there with my parents on the train.
Incredible.
Picked up this bass and that was it. But then, I'm not getting the sound that Jaco got. I'm not getting those harmonics to ring out.
Right.
Oh, he has the extra pickup. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to put in there? I saw on the back of a Kiss album that Kiss uses DiMarzio pickups. So I thought, Kiss uses them. They must be loud. I want one of those.
Yeah.
So I went to the local music shop in Derby, England, and I said, I want a DiMarzio jazz pickup for my bass. And they said, which one? I said, the loudest.
Yeah, the loudest.
And that was it. And I put it in, hammer, chisel, soldering iron, and a drill in the back garden of my parents' place. I was clueless to what I was doing. But I put it in, and luckily it worked. I had a Strat 3-way switch, which I put in there. And somehow it worked because I
you did it all yourself before the YouTube tutorial, right? Before right? You literally just like routed it out and tossed it in there. It's incredible. Do you still have that bass?
Oh yeah. I should have brought it. Yeah, but I do. I do a lot of recording with it. I call it the firm fretless. It's a 77. And the rosewood is still on there, but it's getting so thin. I actually had a very thin epoxy put on there, which I was like, I really don't want to do that. But it literally was like paper thin. And I said, it might get a couple more years out of it. 20 years ago, and it's still going. So I said, only use it for recording now. And it sounds so beautiful, so rich and deep. It's not as versatile as the ebony. The ebony has a wider range of tones. It's punchier. It's tighter. But when we did the signature model, well, even before then, I insisted on having an ebony fingerboard because of the durability, because of those round wound strings. So
yeah, because they'll chew up a fingerboard.
Yeah.
How often are you resurfacing a fingerboard on your main player?
Oh, not very often. Not very often. I use DR Sunbeams, a nice big plug for them. Been using them for 30 years. And they are a little bit more forgiving. They're still rounds. They're a bit more flexible, but don't seem to chew it up so much. So really, no, not that often. As infrequently as possible, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Because the more you take it down, right?
Yeah, and the same with changing strings. I don't want to change strings. In fact, I brought a different bass with me. I thought it was going to work, and I thought, God, these strings are so dead. I better change it. Changed it a few days ago, and it completely changed the character of it. And so I'm back to this standby. This one's good.
I love it. That's great. Hey, we've got a clip too of you playing with the Firm. You're talking about the Firm. You're not using your Firm fretless on this clip, but it's a bass solo that you take. I believe it might be on a Sabre. Does that sound right, Tony?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sabre fretless. And it's so wild. And it just shows you doing so many of the things that you do. And so let's check this out. What? Also, I mean, Tony, like, bass playing on point, but also suspenders and hair. Unbelievable.
Yep. 1984. 22 years old.
Oh, I love it. Are you playing with a pick here?
Yeah.
What a beautiful sound, man.
Well, interestingly, I let the bass go because I didn't like the sound.
Really? Well, I mean, just sounds still like you, though, you know? Whew. Back up to E, standard. Yeah. Pre-hip shot, right? You're not using a hip shot, you're actually using the key.
Yes.
Yeah. What on earth, dude? And then some slapping. I love this. You get the whole crowd involved in it. I mean, that thing? That? What the hell is going on, Tony Franklin?
I don't know.
Speed it up. I mean, oh, it's so fun. All right, there's a lot going on here. And I mean, first of all, I have to ask you, because I heard you on a Gary Hoey record.
Okay.
And a tune called Animal Instinct off of that record, Animal Instinct, where you slid around some harmonics, and it blew my tiny mind. Absolutely. And it just was such a new sound. I had no idea, right? And it was pre-internet, or it was, just around the time there was no YouTube, there was no tutorials. I couldn't go to your channel and watch you talk about it and demonstrate it to me. But now we have that. And so for the people out there that are hearing this for the first time, how on earth are you sliding those harmonics around? Let's just talk about that first, can we?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. By the way, the Music Man bass.
Yes.
So I'd had the Firm fretless, as I'd mentioned, and it had the rosewood, and I even then knew that the fingerboard was getting chewed up. So I was trying to find a bass with an ebony fingerboard, and the Music Man seemed like the closest to a P bass.
Yeah.
But with an ebony board. It just didn't have the sound, though. I couldn't get my sound. It's a whole different thing. You got the high mass bridge, you got the active electronics, which I'm not a fan of, but we can get into that. But so I ended up keeping it for probably 8 months and then let it go. And then it got into the JD, which surprisingly sounded more like the P bass than the Music Man.
And that was the bass that you were playing with Kate Bush, what we
right.
first watched, right? The JD, yeah.
I used that for the second half of the Firm and all of the Blue Murder stuff as well.
Right.
Amazing bass. But the sliding harmonics, yes, this is where the bridge pickup really comes into its own. So, good strong harmonic, right? We got the 5th fret position on the top string right there. So you hit it and it will keep going, right? Like any harmonic will. They're all over the fingerboard, right? You put the finger down on a fretted bass, it will die. On the fretless, because the fret is not there, it doesn't kill the sound. So that's the first action, hitting the harmonic, and then right on that same spot. And if you can see it, I'm right on the dot. All right, and so I'm hitting it right on there. Put it down, and simply move it up or down. Some harmonics are stronger than others. But that's the simplicity of it. I hope that makes sense. It is a very fluid and quick movement. And the beauty of it is, if you move it up a whole step, or a whole fret mark position, it will move up a whole step. So it is very musical. I know that's a G, the G harmonic on the top G string. Move it up to there, it's going to be an A. And I used it very effectively on the intro of the Firm's Radioactive too. It was one of those moments that's like, the song needs something there. It's like there was this, got the drums going, the acoustic guitar, needs something there. What can I come up with? Something cool. And it just literally popped into my head in rehearsals. There it is. And the guys looked around at that point. It's like, oh, we like that. We'll keep that. So it stayed. And that's how it's always been. So, it's such a beautiful and effective thing. And you can do the 2 strings, of course, and later on in the same song. I got that from Pino. Pino was the one that I heard it from first.
Really?
Yeah.
What tune did he do that on? I'm unaware. Do you know?
It's a quick moment that happens in Paul Young's Wherever I Lay My Hat.
Sure.
You know that one.
Of course, yes, but...
And then just that same line again. Check that out. He throws that in there. A 2-note. And I'm like, whoa, what was that?
Oh, right.
And I heard that on the radio, and I'm like, wow. And that's before YouTube, before all the internet. And somehow I figured it out. Just like, wow. It was like, oh, that's cool. That's fun. I'll use that.
Because at least it's like post Jaco, right? Like Jaco introduced us all, I think, right, to harmonics.
Yes.
And then people like you, like Pino, started to take that stuff and move it into other genres, sliding harmonics around. Because Jaco was sliding notes, but I feel like he wasn't sliding a lot of harmonics.
I don't think he ever did. No, I don't think he ever did. But he introduced us to harmonics for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always thought it was Percy Jones that was the first one to use sliding harmonics. Bunny Brunel will tell you it's him, but I don't know. I've not heard it. I know that Percy did use it, but it was a bit more artistic and not so musical, more kind of just kind of more for an effect. And I believe that Mick Kahn also threw a few in.
Yes. Yep.
But never,
kind of like obtuse, right? Like for effect. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I'd never really heard it used musically, and it is such a musical thing because there's so much that can be done with it. it will keep going as well. I mean, it's like it just, it will then do a, oh.
Oh.
That's like,
Yes.
it's like that, but doing it,
with the harmonics.
yeah. So I'm not executing it very well, so excuse me, but
it's
you
just
get
lovely.
you get the idea. But yeah, such a musical thing, and I love that, being able to use it melodically and not just as a random effect, because it's fun to use it as an effect too.
Oh, it's so cool. I mean, in that solo, there's so many things going on. I mean, I feel like I just want to talk to you all day about it. But another thing that I have to ask you is that there's like a slapping figure, but it's almost like you're taking your whole hand against the bass.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me about that. Because I've never played it since then. What am I doing? I don't remember. That's what it is. Yeah. It's like that, but I was practiced, so I was able to get it a lot faster. You have to work up to it.
Tony, what the hell was that, man?
Well, it's just the open. It's those pull-offs again, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh. You've just got such a nice evenness with that stuff too, right? Like, so you're like, oh, I hope you wouldn't ask me about that. But then you're like, it sounds like a gridded sequencer. Like, you have a really nice time when you play those techniques.
Oh, well, thank you. And that is very important to me. And that was instilled from a number of sources. One of the very first lessons that that stuck with me was, well, there were two. When I was professional for the first time in 1980, I was 18, playing with a 10-piece dance band. And I was starting to stretch out, getting comfortable with the gig. And what do you do sometimes when you get comfortable? You start to experiment and get creative. Yes. And start pushing the boundaries. I mean, hey, we got to do that. But for a gig like that, it was like, no, it needs to stay with the music. It's dance music. It's playing Funky Town 3 times a night. Yes.
Yeah, right. Right.
So the band leader, who was not too diplomatic, turned around to me and said, hey, you're getting a little too busy. If you don't get back to the chart and simplify, I'm going to have to let you go. I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. Back to the charts. That was not very diplomatic, but it did the trick. So I was right back to the chart. A couple of weeks after that, the drummer turned around to me and said, not very diplomatically either, hey, it's not only the drummer's job to keep time. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Letting you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only the drummer's job, it's everybody's job. Everybody needs to keep time, especially the bass player. Now, this is something that I often share in masterclasses. So, what do I listen to when I'm playing? When I'm with a drummer, what am I listening to? And people say, the kick drum, the hi-hat, snare, or the guitar. And I'm like, nope, none of that. I keep my own internal rhythm, because if we are counting on somebody else, then we are subject to their sense of time, no matter how good or not it is. So I make sure that I always have that meter going in my head. I know where one is. And to me, it's essential, because, as I say, you can be playing with the greatest timekeeper, or you can be playing with somebody who's not so great. And if you're just going to rely on them, yeah, you may be not so good. So, and that was the other thing one of the things I got from Jaco's playing as well. And, okay, this will be a little bit of a gripe, because you see on YouTube, okay?
Yeah.
You see a lot of bass players, and what do they want to do? They want to solo, right?
Right.
Nothing wrong with soloing. Nothing wrong with soloing. And you can hear the Jaco influence. You hear a lot of other influences, but you hear the Jaco influence. And there are a lot of players that can play all his licks note for note. But the one thing that never faltered whenever Jaco did all the high stuff was his sense of rhythm and his groove.
Yes.
That was so strong. Even when he's, getting wild and crazy, and that pulse was always so strong.
Yes.
And I think that often gets lost. Yeah, I can play all the notes, but the rhythm kind of falls apart. And so between Jaco and that drummer and a few other things, it instilled within me that sense of steadiness and the groove and counting and making sure that everything is, feeling good, because, the bass often doesn't get the credit it deserves, right?
Of course, right.
Why is that? It's because a lot of the time we're only noticed when we stand out and do something wrong, or if the time is wrong, or if the note's off. Yeah, you look at the bass player when he plays a wrong note, right? But the rest of the time, if it's right and the bass is right, we don't notice it, but it feels good. It feels right. And so, it's like, get away from the fancy stuff and learn to play with simplicity. Once you've mastered simplicity, let that be a foundation, and let that be in your fancy stuff as well. Don't get off the beat. Don't get off the groove. Hold it down. So anyway, that was my little mini gripe there.
Amen. No, I mean, gripe away. You can preach that all day long, of course, right? It's easy to see people on social media tearing it up in chops and right. But what do people want from you? Or what do, an employer, a band leader, an artist, typically great sound, great time, great parts. And I mean, for you've made the fretless your thing. And I wonder, do you ever play fretted bass? Like if an artist said, hey, could you do this on fretted? Would you?
I do. And they have asked me that. And sometimes I've argued with them. And when I joined Whitesnake in '97, they said to me, I put out the fretless. It was the firm fretless. I said, that's cool, but would you consider doing this on a fretted bass with a pick? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be happy to do that, but let me just try it on the fretless first, see what you think. And if you like it, then that's cool. If not, I'm happy to do whatever you need. And now I don't always do that, believe me. That was just one of those situations. I knew David covered that very well, and so we have a very playful, honest relationship. We call each other Wallace and Gromit. So
I love it.
He's Wallace.
Did it work then on the fretless? Did you play when you were in Whitesnake? Did you play fretless bass?
Yes, the whole time. Yes.
Unbelievable.
And there's a bass solo I did with a bass break with Whitesnake as well. If you want to look that up, I think it's Ready and Willing. That's one worth looking up to, and it's a real kind of funky thing. There's a lot of rock bass solos. I've never really been. If you get too technical, you will lose the crowd, right? And I feel like that often is the case. It's like you don't want to get too technical. So I'm doing a lot of pull-offs again. It's like, what was the groove? That was it. A lot of kind of showy kind of stuff. But once again, it's the simplicity, but keeping that groove. And you mentioned it too, the sound.
Yes.
The sound is the foundation of it all. You gotta have that. And I still marvel about the fact that, that clip of me doing the bass solo with the firm, I was 22 years old. It was probably our 8th show. Wow. I'd never done bass solos before. And so I was literally thrown in the deep end. The firm had a very powerful and natural and beautiful chemistry. And that is quite often overlooked because, it was Jimmy Page's first band after Led Zeppelin. There was a lot of attention on that. And Paul Rodgers' first band since Badco too. And so a lot of people didn't appreciate it for what it was, I don't think. And that's fine, I get it. The people wanted something that was more like Zeppelin, I think. But I think that the music still holds up. I think it holds up these days. But anyway, the intrigue was there. But then there's like, oh yeah, it's Paul Rodgers, it's Jimmy Page. Oh yeah, I remember Chris Slade from Tom Jones and Uriah Heep and Manfred Mann's Earth Band, great band. And who's this kid with the blonde, spiky dandelion hair on the bass?
Right.
But it created a little bit of a different intrigue because it wasn't like the typical kind of what you would think it would be. They could have got a Pino, and he would have done a fantastic job.
Right.
Or they could have got, I mean, Chris Squire was sitting in with them for a while. And would have been great.
Right.
But the Fretless gave it a different, unexpected flavor, which I think it just worked. Once again, naivety served me well. The only bass I took with me was the Fretless bass. I went down on the train from Derby and went to the rehearsals. Took the Fretless because of Pino. Because I'd heard he'd been sitting in, and I only knew Pino as a Fretless player at that point.
Sure, right.
So I thought
he made his name on the Fretless.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, Pino's been doing it. He plays Fretless. They must like Fretless. That's what I'm going to take.
It's amazing. I love it. I love the conviction and just the boldness too. And you're talking about this thing with Whitesnake too, of like, fellas, let me try it on the Fretless. Let me try this thing on the Fretless. That sliding harmonic thing.
Oh yeah. Just a little break,
Yeah. Oh man, it's so fun. And you're right. Like in that environment, you're not going to wow the crowd with Jaco, right? There's a groove going. You're going to play boo-da-boo-da-boo-da-boo-da-boo. You're like locking into that 16th note groove thing, climbing the fingerboard, but still keeping that rhythm. And it's evidence like the groove is the king in this zone, right? You're keeping that pulse going.
It's the great Denny Carmassi on drums as well, who's such a groove that guy had. But, it's really almost bonehead, that solo. And it really is. It's like there's nothing fancy about it. It's just all pull-offs. I got more adventurous on some occasions. But that was the format, and sometimes I would do go all the way down and keep going.
Yeah.
And it's rock and roll, right? Keep going.
Yeah.
Get down on my knees, and they love that, Sounds huge in the stadium, and it's like, I would much rather go for something like that that's fun and entertaining. And you're right, it works for that situation. You couldn't get old Jaco in there. It would just be
be ridiculous.
But anyway, it's all good fun. And, I'm not really that much of a technician. When I first heard Jaco, I didn't learn any of his stuff. Mm-hmm. I immediately recognized that that's not me. That's beyond me, to be honest. I'm not a jazz player. I'm not a jazz improviser. I cannot do that stuff. I've done big band. I've done some jazz gigs and all that. But when it came to the bass solo and that, it's like, no, just let me keep walking.
Sure. Yes.
Which was great training as well. Playing with a big band and playing with a jazz quartet. I think you were doing something. You guys were doing the walking bass thing, which is so important because you have a groove and a bounce to that. It taught me a lot, and so I don't know how I got on to that, but keeping that going. Yeah, Jaco. So I learned from him his sound, his conviction, the evenness between all the notes, all the strings, and all that. And I always saw him more of a rock player anyway. I mean, his conviction and his intensity. Probably my favorite bass line of his is Birdland. You know,
Oh.
but it's more rock to me than jazz. That.
Yeah. It's like straight funk. Well, you know, he talked about, right, punk jazz, right? Having this kind of like punk rock attitude and even sound in a sense, you know, something that's so left of center for jazz even at the time. And then that kind of got, you know, pulled into jazz. And now it seems sort of traditional, but boy, right, when he was doing it, it was so out. It was so outside of the swinging big band thing.
Yeah. I guess Birdland might be the closest that Jaco got to the sliding harmonics, but it wasn't, was it? It was the...
Yeah, with like the false harmonics.
What is it? They are, yeah. It's somewhere in there. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's but yeah, all that. I mean, God, it was such
incredible, a revelation.
I saw him play. I did meet him, yes, in 1985, and I do a storytelling thing on that with him and Jimmy Page, where I actually introduced the two of them, and we played. Actually, we are recording this on April 30th, right?
We are.
Today is the 39th anniversary of that occasion.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. And I do know that because on April 29th, 1985, the firm played at Madison Square Garden. Right? And it's always like one of those magical moments for me.
Of course.
And then the day after is when we saw Jaco, and I was looking through the paper, see if there was any mention of the firm at Madison Square Garden. There wasn't. And so... So I'm looking to see if anything's happening, and Jaco Pastorius at the Lone Star Cafe, and I called Chris Slade. I say, hey, you want to go see Jaco? And I said, yeah. And I called Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I said, you want to go see Jaco Pastorius? He was not familiar with him. And so I said, oh, just trust me. And then we met Jaco, and Jimmy ended up jamming with him. It was an amazing moment.
Okay, so I love YouTube. You probably love YouTube. But let's be honest. It's not the best platform for in-depth teaching. Enter the SBL Academy. At SBL, we break down the bass with a curriculum-driven approach that spans from complete beginner level to super advanced. We also cover all kinds of genres, skills, and techniques, all brought to you by world-class bass instructors. And best of all, you can get started today for free at trysbl.com. What's something about meeting Jaco that stood out to you? I mean, obviously, just the fact that you can say that you had some time with him is incredible. But is there a specific thing or a handful of things that really stood out to you about that experience?
Well, this is going to be the obvious, but the size of his hands.
Oh, right. Big mitts.
Oh, I mean, mine aren't small. They aren't necessarily big, but his were like, it's like swamped mine.
Wow.
Yeah, well... You know, it was all a bit of an incongruous scene for me because, you know, Jaco was larger than life to me. He was like somewhere between Jimi Hendrix and Elvis Presley, and just his presence and the reason that I played the fretless bass. So I was didn't have my confidence. I was like, I was a little intimidated meeting him. But the thing that made it incongruous was, here's my larger-than-life hero. And the Lone Star Cafe was a very bizarre place. It had a plastic iguana on the roof, like a 15-foot iguana.
Yeah.
And it was like a New Orleans-style bar. And it was fantastic, great vibe in there, but it was pretty much empty. And I'm like, what's going on? This is Jaco Pastorius. He's larger than life. He's bigger than life. And it was pretty much empty. Wow. And everybody was upstairs. They were all partying their brains out, going for it. And that's when we met Jaco, and it was like such a scene up there. And then for the second half, they all came downstairs and it was packed. And then that's when Jimmy got up and played. So it was honestly, the whole scene and meeting Jaco was just so a mind melt for me.
Yeah.
I could barely say a word to him. It's like it was just nothing was coming out right. But I've become friends with his family since, and I told Mary, his wonderful daughter, many years later, what I really did want to say to him that night once I got my brain back. That he changed my life. I love him so much, and all that he brought to music and all he brought to me. I just appreciate him and love him so much. And we hugged each other, and it was like, really.
Oh,
I felt it was an emotional moment. It was tears for both of us. Wow. And at the time I couldn't comprehend it or take it all in.
yes.
But he was up there. He was playing little snippets of Continuum and Portrait of Tracy and all that stuff. And yet it was this kind of bizarre scene. It was like one of those dreams you have. I don't know. The bassist dream I have is where I was watching Stanley Clarke play in the dream, right? And then he hands me his bass to play, yeah. And it's got these rusty barbed wire strings.
Right.
Or it was I'm playing with Queen, and then all the strings turn to rubber bands and the equipment's not working, and I don't know any of the songs, and I love Queen. They were my first hero band. So it was honestly a little bit like that, so surreal, so otherworldly. But just as time sinks in and you remember it, it's like, wow, that was a real special moment. And Jaco, as we know, none of us knew really at the time the struggles he was going through. But he mentioned to his family, jamming with Jimmy, what a special moment it was for him. So I feel, I played a part in making a memorable, special moment happen for Jaco, and that made my heart happy. So.
Oh man, and you're the maven, right? You brought those two guys together. How cool! How cool is that, right? To be a connector.
Two JPs, and they're two of the most influential JPs in my life.
Oh, absolutely. In all of life, really. I mean, in most musicians' lives. Wow. Man, that's remarkable. And I think too, what's so cool is to hear you talk with such reverence about Jaco, but not wanting to be him, recognizing that obviously all this contribution, all this, pedagogy and pedigree to our lives as bass players, but you had carved your own path. I mean, it had to feel weird too to see him in that small spot with the plastic iguana on top after you guys had just played MSG. I mean, that had to feel sort of like a cognitive dissonance, right?
Very, very much so, yes. I mean, I did that same bass solo, but by then it had evolved and it was a longer thing. And when people asked me what was a real highlight for you, it was playing at Madison Square Garden, playing my bass solo with nobody else on the stage for 8-10 minutes of the night, and the crowd going nuts at Madison Square Garden, sold out crowd, and just me. It's like that. I still stand back in awe of how it even happened. I was 23 by then. So yes, we were flying on that cloud.
Yes.
And then seeing Jaco the day after, I mean, it's all just like, it's the stuff of a memoir, which I'm writing.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so happy you're doing that because we need it. We need those stories. We need those thoughts. We need that stuff written down.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that you're not trying to be someone else. You're very much Tony Franklin, and that's what people love about you. And there's one more clip we've got to show because I'd love to talk about this pick thing. You've mentioned it. We even saw it a bit with the Firm, but there's a great clip of you playing just a simple groove with Carmen playing drums. And it's just so cool, and you get such a cool sound. And I thought we should show it. Let's check this out.
Digging in.
Yes. tune down to that low D sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah, tune down to the low D, yeah.
Oh. I mean, it's so different than Jaco, right?
Right.
It's your own thing. And I sort of feel like sometimes people think, well, you know, there's a certain group of people that think playing bass with a pick is sacrilegious. I mean, I sort of think that that's died down. It's almost just a meme at this point, sort of silly.
Yeah.
But definitely that thing still exists for playing fretless bass with a pick, I think. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And that was a Blue Murder song called Valley of the Kings. I'm still in the habit of tuning manually instead of using the drop
Without
D.
the drop D key. I love it. I love it.
So yeah, that was, I hope this, I'm gonna have to back this off a little bit because it might overload here. It's just really,
Oh. Yes.
I think I play it more like a guitar than a bass at times, and that's always been my approach. Ow, it's too long. I'm gonna do that bit again. See, I'm human. I love that bit. You get that syncopation going in there?
Yes. Ugh.
This next bit you can't do with fingers. It's just ruthless, you know? It's like... And then the middle solo section, because I love because you have the natural octave between the two Ds. So it's... Whether it's right or wrong, it's just so powerful and so cool.
Hey, if it's wrong, I don't want to be right, Tony. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah. So.
Where did this come from for you? So, you know, I'm thinking maybe it's the Whitesnake thing, but no, because you're doing it with the firm pre-Whitesnake. You know, you're playing with a pick on stage with the firm. Where did the pick thing come from, and why did you do it?
I'm laughing because it came from, what was the bass player's name? Jean-Jacques Burnel. Who's he from? Come on.
Somebody just played this for me and I didn't know it. Peaches, and
yes.
it's Stranglers, the Stranglers. Just barely got out of that one.
When I heard that, it's like, that is the only way you can do that is with a pick.
Right.
And I loved his whole attitude, the aggressive. I also liked Bruce Foxton. Who's he with?
Elvis Costello.
No.
Damn it. No, that's Bruce Thomas. Oh, no, Bruce Foxton. Hit me with it. Hit me with it, Tony.
That was the Jam with Paul Weller.
Yes.
Another great bass player. Use the pick.
Jeez. I got to get hip to it.
Yeah, those guys. And both of those are kind of the punk, new wave, whatever you want to call that time. British, or Jean-Jacques Burnel. They were French, weren't they? I think he was. But there's such an attitude that I love that about it. And to me, I don't know. I do play in a very rhythmical. I think it's a way of keeping the rhythmical side of it going as well.
Yeah. Yes.
I do play. There's another song that we did with Blue Murder called Billy. I tune up to a B on that, on the A string. And I love testing. I love doing it by ear and then seeing how close I am.
Oh, cool. That's great.
I was pretty close. So... so heavy and it has such a groove, you know, and then you put that low E in there. It's, I don't know, I don't know why people sneer about the pick, especially on a fretless. It turns it into a whole different beast.
Completely.
And there's
different.
nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So
yeah,
bring
it's
it
so
on.
cool. Absolutely. And for me, it was Tony Levin with Peter Gabriel doing Sledgehammer. That was the first tune that I became aware of fretless with a pick, right? It just was, that's octaver and chorus. And, you know,
God, yes.
Just all this rule breaking, which is so cool, right? The stuff that we remember is the stuff that breaks the rules, where you're doing something innovative that you're not supposed to do, that the gatekeepers tell you is not okay, or it's not traditional, or it's not cool. And I freaking love that about you, man. I always have. Just awesome. And it's such a treat to see you demonstrate all this stuff too. It's just... oh, I love it. And you sound, when you play this way with a pick on the fretless, it sounds like you have drive on. It sounds like, and you don't. I can tell that, it's just clean, but you're right. It turns it into this sort of like raging beast of a bass.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I mean, what can I say? It's more colors to the palette. It turns into such a versatile instrument. Using the pick, using the fingers. I'm not really a big slap guy. I did that more for the effect, you know, especially in the firm days. But I'm not like one of these guys that can do all that stuff. And honestly, and there are some great players out there, and it's an incredible technique in itself. But for me, you lose a lot of the low end. It becomes more of a percussion instrument than a bass instrument. And so I stay away from it because... I mean, here's the deal. 90% of the gigs you get on bass, you will not be slapping.
That's true. Maybe 95. Yeah. Did you say 90 or 99?
Yeah, right.
It's in there.
It's fun to do it, but I've not lost a gig because I've not been able to slap.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Tony. You told us that you've now been playing the bass for 50 years. It's incredible. In this amazing career that you've had, if you think back to, you know, Tony Franklin in his late teens, or even just starting, what is a piece of advice that you would give a young Tony Franklin now?
Wear hearing protection.
Really? Yes. Is that right?
Early on. I mean, I'm still good. Thankfully, but here is me with the Firm, with the Blue Murder, and a lot of loud bands. Excuse me. And I never wore any hearing protection. I've been playing with my parents' band since I've been 5 years old. So
right.
It was a gig with Gary Hoey, actually, in the mid-90s. And I was very close to the drums, and it's like, ooh, got some ringing in the ears. And I've been wearing hearing protection since then. And with my lifestyle and meditation and taking care of myself and clean living, I've maintained I haven't lost any, thankfully. So, but then again, nobody was back then.
Nobody was, right.
So, gosh, what would I tell a young Tony Franklin? I don't know. I think I did okay.
Yeah.
There was one time when I was another JP, funnily enough, He was the guy that I played a lot of the jazz stuff with, and he showed me the walking bass and everything. Let's get. You know, all that stuff. He showed me changes, playing all that, and but then he offered to show me how to improvise over changes. And I didn't take it because it didn't appeal to me. It was not my thing. Right. And I wonder if that would have changed me. I don't know. But, you know, most of the... Musically, I'm happy with everything that I did. Personally, on a human level, I would have spoken to myself about a few things, which I'm not going to get into that because that is personal. But
fair play.
Yeah, I definitely would have conducted things a little differently, made a few different life choices and all that. But musically, no, it's okay. I think I did all right. But having said that, I still have so much hunger and drive and creative stuff I want to get out there. I'm not just resting on imaginary laurels. That is always dangerous. And never think that you're good. Every night I go out there to prove to myself that I can still do it, and just want to do a good job for the gig. You know, it never got to a point of thinking, well, there was one time, and it came back to kick me in the rear end dreadfully when I did an audition with Mick Jagger. And
wow.
It was dreadful.
What was dreadful about it? Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, it's a great rock and roll story. But so the firm, I never say the firm ended. It just didn't continue. Right. So
sure. Yes.
We were done. It was 1986. We'd done a last show and all that, but it hadn't been announced, so people didn't know. So anyway, I was kind of bummed, and so I didn't play that much. I was just kind of regrouping myself and all that, figuring out what's next. I got a call from Mick Jagger's camp saying, do I want to come in and audition with Mick Jagger's band? I said, yeah, that'd be great. They sent me a cassette with tunes from She's the Boss, that was his solo album, and the Stones' Miss You, which, great. So I'm like, I can't wait to play that. Hey,
yes.
I'm the fretless dude. I'm going to take the fretless.
Wow, yeah.
Can you imagine doing Miss You on a fretless bass with all those octaves? Now, it's not easy, you know, it's a lot of... I can do it now, but back then, you know, I was like, I should have taken the fretted bass for that. I was like just a little too full of myself thinking, hey, this is my thing. And so I kept a closed mind about it, and I hadn't been playing that much. So we got through the first of all, I walk in and I'm shown to the stage and everything, and plug in the bass amp, look over to my right, there's Jeff Beck on the guitar. I'm like,
amazing.
Oh, wow. And he says, hello, Tone. I'm like, oh, hi, Jeff. You know, I'm not feeling my confidence too much. Oh, and there's Omar Hakim on the drums.
Wow. Right.
Great Omar Hakim, yes. And then in walks Mick Jagger. Full swagger is like the epitome of himself, right?
Incredible.
And I said, oh, you play with Jimmy Page, right? I said, yeah, that's right. Fretless bass, eh? Yeah. Interesting.
He said interesting. Wow.
And then, we're about to start playing, and in walks Robert Plant.
Oh, what?
And he said, oh, well, Tone, Jimmy give you the day off, did he?
It's crazy.
Hey, can we swear on this?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because I don't usually, but I'm quoting somebody else. So we're playing along, and everything's gone fine, and then it's Miss You, and I'm like, all excited for this. This is when I realized it didn't have my road stamina. So I'm playing along, doing all those octaves, all that, and it's starting to drag. It's getting slow. I don't have my stamina here, and it's Mick's turning around, giving the signs and all that, and then he turns around on the microphone. He says, "Here, what is this? A fucking foxtrot?"
Wow. And was that directed at you?
Oh, yes. He looked at me and he announced it to everyone.
Oh, no. Oh, Tony.
And so at that point, I want the hole to open up in the ground and swallow me and take me to the other side of the world. And I'm like, oh. And I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to get the gig. But, That's
amazing.
So that was a very humble, so that was the one time, as far as I'm aware, it's like, yeah, I was a little full of myself. So you can't get that. You always have to be prepared. You always have to be ready and do what's appropriate for the gig. Now, here's me telling David Coverdale I want to play the Fretless, but, at the same time, there was an open-mindedness to it. Gary Hoey did the same thing. He was not sure about the Fretless.
Sure.
And he spoke to his manager about it. And his manager said, go home, shut up, and listen to the Blue Murder album.
Wow. Right. So the manager put a reference in front of Gary and said, check this out.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was open-minded to it. You got to be open-minded. Do what's appropriate for the music. Do what the music needs. And if that's fretted bass, and I actually play fretted bass quite a bit. I'm out touring with Lou Gramm, and by choice, I do that on fretted bass. And that is mainly for the music.
Yes.
The Fretless gives it a different personality, a different flavor, a different kind of flow to it, which wouldn't be appropriate for the foreigner music. So right. I want to keep that true. And plus there's quite a bit of vocals going on. So I do that by choice on fretted bass. I could do it on the Fretless, and I have on a couple occasions, but it's not as enjoyable, to be honest. I still have to be engaged with the fingerboard and look at those dots and listen and all that.
Right,
so
of course, yeah.
I can stand back and enjoy the music more, that music and that situation on the fretted bass. And so there's plenty of gigs where that is appropriate, and I love the fretted bass just as much as the Fretless. But I can express myself so much more. And why is it that I like the fretless bass? It's not because of all that stuff. It's not because of all that.
Right.
I liken it to the human voice. The human voice doesn't have frets, right?
Right.
It would be very robotic if it did. And so the human voice, if it gets excited, the voice goes up, it expresses it, you can hear that. If it gets down or depressed, it's, oh God, I'm not feeling so good today. We don't think about it. It's a very intuitive, instinctive thing. And so the fretless gives me that ability to just express myself subtly sometimes. It doesn't need to be all the big. That's fun. Little things, it gives a different kind of flavor. And I don't think about it. It just kind of becomes something that I want to express in that moment. One of the biggest compliments I love receiving is, I didn't even know it was a fretless bass.
Yeah, right.
So it
speaks to your intonation, right? It speaks to your groove. It speaks to your sound. If you're not constantly vibratoing or sliding all over the place. Yes. And
then the other thing is like, Tony only lets you know it's a fretless when he wants to. And that's another compliment too. It's like, it's not like an effects pedal you're going to throw on and here's the fretless effect. It's still the bass, and it's got to fulfill those essential roles, which is holding down the low end and maintaining the groove.
You heard it here. Tony Franklin, what is coming up for you that is exciting? What's next for you?
Gosh, yes. Well, I'm in the process all the time. All these years I've been writing songs. And I usually don't record them. I write them straight to paper. I hear them and I write them down, which I love doing that. So I said, there's probably 100 of them. I've got to get them written, recorded. I've put out a couple of solo albums over the years that were only released in Japan. It was all me, but so I got to put those to use and get them out into the world somehow.
Yes.
Either for publishing, licensing, TV, movies, video games, all of the above. So that's a big undertaking. I love doing the home recording thing, so I'm deep in that. I'm completing a long overdue bass instrumental album, which is there's one track called The Eternal Now, which is on there. You may have seen that. That's if you look for that one, there's lots of, I focus on compositions first. I'm always been about the song because here's the thing. Is there a bass line that really got me paying attention to the bass? No, there isn't. I never paid attention to the bass. I was always about songs.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm doing the bass album, but the emphasis is more about how can I play what I consider a good composition, a great composition, hopefully, on the bass, using the bass as the main voice. It's not about, okay, here's this riff and here's this technique, I'm going to throw this in.
Yeah,
let's write a song or a piece of music around it. No, the music comes first. And so there's that going on. The memoir is almost completed. Lots of fantastic stories and insights in that. And always creating and writing. So yeah, I'm doing gigs with Lou Gramm. I continue to do rock and roll fancy camps. I think I've done 23 of those now, and just different things. And I'm always busy in the studio, the home studio, doing recording sessions. So yeah, more of the same, but just wake up every morning happy and thankful and want to make something creative and special.
Oh, well, that's incredible. And you're a gift to us and the community, bass players. We love you. Where do we go to best support you? A website, your socials? Tell us where we go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your support. You guys are doing your part. You guys are great. I love what you guys do. I mean, you really give the real tools and the insights that really make a difference. A lot of the stuff that I've spoken about today is what you guys do. Yes, we do the fancy stuff and all that, but the foundational stuff is so important. And people ask me if I teach. I really don't. I do occasional lessons. I always point them towards Scott's bass lessons.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Awesome.
No, absolutely. But everything is on the Fretless Monster for me. YouTube.com/. at Fretless Monster, fretlessmonster.com, Twitter, Fretless Monster, YouTube, I already said that, Instagram/Fretless Monster. And so everything is there. I'm very active. It's all me. I answer and really have fun and share a lot of fun stuff as well. And just want to create some more YouTube content as well. I mean, I've been a little bit behind with that. So it's, you know what it is. It's a commitment to keep that going.
Of course it is. Yes. And you're an awesome content creator also. I need to say, like, seeing your voice on social, on YouTube, you can tell you're comfortable in front of a camera. It's wonderful. And that is not a given. So thank you. Like, whenever you put out a piece of content, it's a gift. So thank you. We will be sure to follow you, and everybody, you heard it, Fretless Monster at all the places. Go check out and support Tony Franklin. Tony, thank you, man, so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Ian. Yes.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
All the best. Cheers. Bye.